last 8 years.
Right. Welcome, everybody. This is December's regular board meeting for the Arlington Public Schools Board of Education. Tonight's meeting is being held in compliance with the Nebraska Open Meetings Act, copy of which is posted at the back of the room. Must be a beautiful night, general school board, guys. Everybody wanted to come to this one? No humor. Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. and take roll, please. Okay.
Right. Jason,
Here.
Cass Leslie. Here. Chase Cradwell.
Here.
Matt O'Daniel.
Here.
Bruce Shear.
Here.
Shannon Wilmot. Here.
All right, very good. We have a quorum and we'll say the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on our agenda tonight, as always, is the approval of this evening's agenda, item 1.4. Do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I make a motion to approve the regular meeting agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Bruce and Chase. It's been moved and seconded. Any more discussion on the agenda? Seeing none, let's vote, please.
Shannon Wilmot. Yes. Bruce Shear.
Yes.
Matt O'Daniel.
Yes.
Chase Cradwell.
Yes.
Yes. Jason.
Yes. All right, very good. Motion carries. Item 1.5 on our agenda, the one we've all been looking forward to tonight. Mr. Bruce, we have a plaque here for you, sir. We want to thank Bruce for his 8 years, 2 terms of service on the school board, and for everything that you've done. Bruce and I talked on the phone a little bit last night, and Bruce started rattling off all the things that we have accomplished since he started on the board. He's got it right there. And it's pretty impressive, you know. It's good for all of us to stop and think about what we've accomplished. So thanks for rolling that off, Bruce. Did you actually want to say a few words?
Actually, I would like to
Okay.
say some departing words. Everybody knows that I'm far and few, not short of words. So I'll make it short, half an hour, so the kids can stay a little bit longer. No, I'm just joking. Just looking over the 8 years, and like Matt said, him and I talked, and I started thinking about stuff that this district, what I've seen with the district in the last 8 years, and just started jotting stuff down. And I was impressed with how much I've seen in the district, Matt's seen, and Shannon has seen quite a bit of it because she's been in 4 years, skipped 2, and came back on 4 more. So she's seen the exact same stuff that I've gone through and then some. But start off with Shada, came on board as a new AD when I first came on, and of course he's not here as usual, so I'll skip the puns on that. But you know, this board has participated in 2 new hires with Mr. Fingston and with Jackie as the high school principal and then our elementary principal. We had a principal prior to Jackie that was just here for a short period of time, and for the life of me, I can't remember his name. So I do remember you, Jackie. And then we did the search and hire with Dr. Lewis. That was interesting. We brought on a board members from past boards to help us with that, and then we hired an outside source, and I was glad to be part of that. And then with that, we went a direction and we hired some new personnel. We did a resource officer, we did a psych person, we did a data with control with Mrs. Wolf, and then partake with 6 retirees of 25 plus years and coaches that's been with the school that we had to find replacements for. And then the changes with the conference teams, we added some new conference teams and lost some with Waterloo and Springfield Platteview. Hoping to lose one more that would help us out a little bit with Ashland, but that's maybe in time when they finally go to Class B like they should be. Went through a flood and dealt with the flood details with the buses. Went with COVID and in at-home class studies. That was interesting, which by doing that added our Strive with the school, and we're able to strive board meetings and sporting events and other musicals and stuff like that. Added community engagement with the board and to the district, so the district can participate and be closer to the board. We added an FFA program, a swimming co-oping program with Fremont, and then we added girls wrestling this last year. So, and that's going well, is what I understand. We updated a computer system. We updated a HVAC system school-wide. We updated some classrooms and some bathrooms. We bought a new bus barn, which was a big plus. And then we changed the property lines, and that's when I forgot and remembered we did all the property lines down there at the baseball field and then updated the baseball field. A lot of people thought that we owned the baseball field, but there was parts of the baseball field we didn't actually own, so we changed all the property lines and we actually own it now. We resurfaced the track and we did the drainage, and then we updated the football lights, and then we added the bus barn fuel tank here just recently, and the new addition to the school. So we did that all in 8 years. So commend the district and the resources that we did, and was able to keep the levy down until this last year. But
Well, Bruce, you were on the board for all that, so, you need to take some responsibility for all that success too, and we appreciate your efforts. I'm gonna show you this plaque, right? Beautiful plaque, everybody, for Bruce.
it's got my name wrong or something.
Nope.
That's correctly, and when we're done, make sure you stay around, we'll get some pictures, okay?
It's been a pleasure.
Presentation pictures. Well, thank you, it's been a pleasure, I think everybody would say. Yeah. It's really cool that an alum comes back, and we've got several here, but way to go, Bruce. Next item on our agenda is item number 2, welcome to guests in public forum. As is typical, when we have somebody scheduled that we do tonight, we'll invite that individual to speak first. Mr. Ethan Porter asked to be on the agenda to address the board tonight. Is Mr. Porter here? Mr. Porter, thank you. There's a sheet there if you haven't signed in yet. If you want to sign in, and then the floor is yours, sir.
So I just want to bring to the board's attention that the foreign exchange student policy is, in words of the Nebraska Board of Education, directly discriminatory is how they described it. It directly singles out single individuals. It directly singles out anyone whose child is aged out of the school system and anyone who can't have children. And if you're not willing to change it, that's fine. I would like the board to, at minimum, direct their administrators to not create a roadblock to option them into a different district like they did this school year.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak this evening? Seeing none, we will move on. So item 3 on our agenda this evening is the consent agenda. We have previous board minutes, financial statements. Dr. Lewis, is there anything that you want to pull out and touch on here?
Yes, I did want to visit about the Lou's sporting goods bill just a little bit.
You'll find that on there, and it's a large bill. It includes a lot of items though. So, zip through that a little bit. This is essentially, we've been paying little bits and pieces. This is pretty much everything that we purchased from Lou's this year. Mr. Figgson is probably gonna zoom in on that a little bit instead of making it small.
Jeez.
But so the total amount there is $32,965, which clearly is a large chunk of money. But that was for our football uniforms, which were on cycle to replace. So we get 60 uniforms. We got really a less expensive one. And buying from that company, we got 2 sets, and then they threw in a third one for free. But that's the majority of that. So they were on cycle. We've always gone through that process in a similar way. However, they're getting a little bit more expensive. So we might want to have a little bit more conversation with the board when it comes to those more expensive uniforms than we have this year. But on cycle, we've never really done those, like presenting for approval before we purchase them. So we might want to look at doing that in the future, just when they get large like this. But that was for 2 sets of uniforms for 60 players. That's how many they always purchase for. And then they threw in the third, like I said. The remainder of that is the startup costs for girls wrestling. So we knew that there were going to be some expenses there. So that was 12 sets of singlets for the ladies, and then their warm-ups and everything that they needed to have equitable equipment that the boys had. So we're compliant with Title IX for the startup costs on that. And then it was for any replacement football helmets we needed, and to recondition all of the other football helmets, which is also a pretty large expense. And then there were some other odds and ends on there too. So I just wanted to make sure that I talked about that since it was such a large one. And it's kind of been a culmination. The Lou's bills things out a little bit differently, and sometimes it's a matter of sorting things out and things like that. But it all just kind of came all on one bill at the same time. So that's why that one is so much larger than normal. That you would see a couple of changes to finances too. You now see that we can cut checks for our expenses out of the hot lunch fund without having to reimburse the general fund for them. You see a new check register if you're at the end. After the total of the special funds, you see hot lunch expenses. So that is why you're seeing that now, because before that was always just expenses that came out of the general fund and got transferred over, but now we can write checks out of that right there. Payroll still has to get written out of general fund and then transferred over from hot lunch, but these are the checks that came directly out, the paper checks. So kind of cleans up that process a little bit for the auditors.
Don, quick question.
Yes.
Aaron, can you scroll up? The bus barn fuel tank at 11,000, keep going.
Yes.
Are we going to, first question is that just the tank, or is that the tank and the meter with the computer system?
I think that was everything on there, but there is a recurring expense that we didn't know about with the metering system, so we're trying to figure that out, like it's a monthly recurring charge
And
to use the system, but that was for the tank and for that equipment.
for the hookup or whatever.
Well, there'll still be some
Right.
electrical that
Yeah.
hasn't been built out yet because
Right.
Fremont Electric has to come with the trencher.
Right. My second question to that is, are we going to pair up with the fire department and the city? And if we are we going to split that out?
That's actually,
Right.
In here somewhere.
Yeah,
An
it's,
agenda.
it'll be in the superintendent's report, but yeah, and I'll have it out there on that, okay?
Fair enough.
And that should take care of it. As far as the billing goes, probably not, except maybe for the recurring monthly expense, but we'll talk all about that in a little bit. Okay. So you see that, we have another addition there of the hot lunch expenses. The other thing too, and then there's our Amazon list there, or our Visa bill. Finally, on there, it's kind of hard if you zoom in enough on the second to the last page. You can see where we were a year ago as far as percentage of budget expended and percentage of receipts. So it's, yeah,
Change the
Yeah.
coloring on that, I'm sorry.
I don't know what
noticed-
highlight to make it. It was just yellow, wasn't it?
Yes,
So
I didn't
either way.
realize it was.
I think we can scan it as color instead and upload it that way. But anyway, so you can carefully, look carefully, you can see where we were compared to last year, the same point in time. So that's kind of a nice comparison to how then you can take a look at that. And then finally, you may notice that beginning balances for the activity funds look a little bit different than they did in October and November, but when we got to the audit, these financial statements here, it had the actual audited starting balances. So the beginning balances now reflect what the audited were, and we just got this, this month, because the AFR did not include the actual audited figures of our balances there. So we adjusted a few of those. It did not change the bottom line of the dollars, but we did adjust what our starting balance is there. And then it's year-to-date revenues and year-to-date expenditures, and then today's balance, or as of the end of November balances there.
Okay. Any thoughts, questions for Dr. Lewis? No? I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second
Thank you, Bruce. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any more discussion? Seeing none, let's vote, please.
Cassie Clausen,
Yes.
Chase Crowder,
Yes.
Matt O'Daniel,
Yes.
Bruce Shear,
Yes.
Shannon Wilmot, Jason Miller.
Yes. All right, very good. Motion carries. That leads us to our curriculum and instruction reports. Item 4.1 is a review of the Nebraska education profile information for our school. And I'm going to turn this over. Who wants to?
Mrs. Wolf came to speak about some of us a little bit, and the rest of the
Yeah.
team had kind of prepared to do that as well. So I think probably the first thing that I'd like to start with before we turn everything over to Tasha to talk about our actual data is if Erin would just kind of, I don't know if you can find a window and show folks like that are here step by step kind of how to find it on the Department of Education website. Do you know where to find it on the Department of Education website? Mrs. Morgan's going to drive for a minute. And then if you scroll down to the right side, nope, don't drop that one down. Close that. See where the X is? Close that. And scroll down to the Nebraska. You want to go? See, it's just, I'm a backseat driver right now. Okay, in the center there, Nebraska education profile on your right, the middle of that column on the right. There it is. So this is where you can go. And then where it says search NEP there, you can type in Arlington, you can type in Omaha, you can type in Hemingford, you can type in Ainsworth, whatever district that you want to take a look at, but if you're really interested. So some highlights there, we'll just kind of hit some of those highlights. You can see our school got a great rating, which we've been telling everybody that we have a great school, right, kids? So that is our overall rating. If you go to specifically elementary, and we can kind of manipulate those a little bit, and you can drop down. If you type in Arlington, it will ask you if you just want to see elementary. You can narrow it down that way. Look, that changed to an excellent rank. So that's pretty great. But you see how you can kind of get in here and you can really narrow it down by schools to see our rankings and things like that. If you go back to public, yeah, in high school you can look, that's going to have a great rating on there as well. And the middle school had the grade as well. Some highlights we are 3 years ago when they came out with this data set was called TSI or TS something else. Yeah. So it was targeted for support for improvement. And we had that ranking in middle school for our special education population. We have dropped off of that. So those students made gains, which is great. And then you can kind of scroll here and it shows a few things where we are compared to the state. Now I'm going to turn it over to Tasha because she's going to break down here. That is on your agenda tonight. And I'll let her kind of take it from here and tell Erin what she wants him to pull up first and what she kind of wants to talk through.
Just want me to go over the report first.
Sure.
Perfect. Well, I wasn't expecting to be here tonight, but girls
no
basketball
game,
is constantly being canceled. So I'll just go through each of the sections that I kind of deem my areas at the school. Professional development is one of them. We continue to really try to offer a lot of professional development to our staff members through other people that work here. We have a plethora of knowledge from our teachers. So being able to get them more involved in teaching others great things that are happening in their classrooms so that we can use them in other classrooms is really our big push. We have kind of a point system this year. It's a little different than last year, where each of the teachers is expected to earn 4 points throughout the school year of different professional developments that they either go outside the district or within the district that we have offered during different in-service times. We had that in September for, I think we had 5 breakout sessions, and it was fantastic. It was awesome. The teachers who are in charge did a great job. There's lots of great comments about it, and you could see that the things were being used in the classroom that they were learning. So it was just a really great experience. We're hoping to offer some more of those professional development opportunities in the next 2 in-services in January, just to give them some more points. The teachers at first did not understand how easy it would be for them to earn 4 points, and most of them are already done. So we'll just continue to push professional development and growing our craft. Team meetings, I'd say this is probably one of my favorite. I love the job, period, but team meetings is one of my favorite times. Once a week, we meet with every grade level in the elementary and get to sit down with them for 30 minutes and just talk about students, the different behaviors we're seeing in the classroom. We're able to go over the state standards. Currently, we're thumbing through those new math standards that just got sent out to us and really correlating and see how they are different from the last 7 years. We're not seeing too big of a differences as we look at the higher grade levels. The elementary, they're just bringing back stuff that they got rid of that they thought, kids might need to use a clock and be able to tell time. And so they brought that back again. And money and stuff like that. So we're really just focusing on
Bring the
making
rotary
sure
phone
we know the
back
state
too, so that
standards.
they can actually use it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no.
Yes, it's interesting. Got a little say. Curriculum, right now, we are in the adoption phase for ag, business, and industrial tech. We will make final decisions in February and then come before the board with that. I think we're gonna meet one more time in January with those teachers and just really hone in on what we need. They are looking for some pretty big ticket items. The curriculum is not, there's not as much curriculum in those areas as there would be other necessary needs. We are in the research and development for math. We are looking at 4 different curriculums. SAVIS, which we have right now currently. They have the new updated version. It's very similar to what we have. And since our test scores in math are looking great, that's one of the sitting pretty high there. We also got, it's called Eureka 2 or Eureka Squared, another great system that we've learned a lot of good things about. HMH, excuse me, nickel court, and then Bridges is more of your K-3. It doesn't go all the way up to 12. So we'll start looking at those and start pacing guides and different alignment things to see how they match up with our standards here in January. We'll hope to have 2 narrowed down at the end of the school year, and then from there we will pilot hopefully next fall, and then start that process also. And implementation for ELA is going fantastic. Our K-3 teachers are loving Super Kids. Our 4 up are really getting into pacing different things. And we were looking at not only our overall scores, but just reading and figuring out where we lack the most. We're seeing that writing is a really hard component of the NSCIS test. So we kind of went through just different alignments, vertical alignments of writing, so that we can fill any holes and gaps that we're seeing in that. But the implementation of it is going fantastic, and the teachers seem really excited. So we're excited to see where it goes. The last part is the data and testing. We are in testing season right now with the winter testing for NSCIS and for FastBridge. Arlington continues to do a great job with their testing. We continue to be at or above the middle of our array schools and our ESU schools. We really are successful in the math area. I'm really excited to see how we finish out the school year with reading having this new curriculum that I feel like has a lot of rigor that we are not used to and really gets the parts that we were struggling with. Yeah, so, if you have questions?
There's a lot to
We look
unpack
at
in
some of the
there.
data.
There is.
Yeah.
This is
There is.
attached to.
Oh, okay, yes, so I sent you, the numbers, we kind of sat down and looked at the schools that were within our array and the schools that were also ESU schools, and kind of, place where we were at in those. I think we we're top 5 in math for the elementary, or for all school, yeah.
Which chart do you want? Do you want, this one?
Are we at grade level on that one? Yeah. This one shows all of them.
Let's go to the page before that, Mr. Kingston up. And then make that one full screen, please. Okay. You can maybe go one bigger. Okay.
So this has all of the different data pieces from the elementary NSCAs to middle school, and then the ACT in grade 11.
So columns, Tasha, I'm just gonna clarify, columns where it says district, that's ELA, science, and math, correct?
Yes.
And that's district 11, okay.
I'm assuming this is percentile.
This is.
Yes.
This is percent proficient or advanced, correct?
Yes.
So it's a little different than the percentile, it just means that, yeah, so. So you can take a look, yeah, we were just slightly above the middle in ELA. And then we're just the
And the
top
top
5
5.
in math and the second highest in science, isn't it? So,
The next part just breaks it out via
a great
grade
level.
level. And then also in comparisons to years prior.
Mhm. Mrs. Wolf did a great job putting this together, but it's a lot for a board meeting, so you might have to take some time to scroll
A
through.
lot of information.
It's pretty self-explanatory, we're highlighted in yellow, so.
And it's
What
great to
were-
see that the math is still gaining.
Yeah,
After these years, you're normally gonna see this curriculum that we have now is 7 years old. So you usually see a little bit of a flat line at some point, but we just continue to make good improvements.
I think what's important that we talked about as a team too is not necessarily how high that percentile rank is or how many students were proficient, but out of the highest that we could match up to where we were. So we really like kind of that comparison rank. So, but also we want to see improvement or at least consistency from year to year. So as you look through these yellow lines, like if you stop there just for a second, you can see in 17, 18, we're 61% proficient, and this is ACT math. Then 2018, 19, they come down a little bit. You can see the growth where we came back up for ACT math. So that's what we're looking for is that trend line. And you're going to have dips and things like that in the trend line and coming back up. But what you want is to see overall growth. So if you were to put this on a line graph, things would either stay kind of flatline or go up. You don't want to be trending downward. So that's what we're really.
Wasn't 18, 19, wasn't that the year we changed,
They changed tests.
they changed their
Yes.
tests, so we didn't really have a lot of data, if I remember right, to actually,
Well, and
compared
everybody's scores kind of went down the year that
that's
they
what I
changed
remember
tests.
too.
And then the next year, they punted on NSCAS or
Yep,
USA, whatever, completely because the next year was COVID.
Right,
And then the year after that, they let us take the test, but they didn't release the data because
Yeah.
so many schools were on A day, B day, or still doing virtual, and they didn't think that the test scores were going to be reliable. And so,
Mhm.
so they didn't release those scores, so we're coming off of really 2 years. 1 year was, especially in the language arts, that's when they changed the test, I think. So 1 year is during test change, which you typically see scores go down a little bit. And then we had a year where the test didn't even happen, and the year after that, they didn't take our scores. So that's why you also see that jump from 18, 19 to 21, 22.
yeah, that's what I remember.
And this will be the first year where we'll have all 3 data points for NSCAS. So we will have taken it in the fall, the winter, and the spring. Not all schools, that was not a requirement from the state. We just felt like it was very hard to compare apples to apples when you're taking the MAPS test. And then you take the NSCAS, which is more state standard driven.
Yeah.
There was not a good correlation there. So it'll be nice to just have consistent data that we're looking at.
I would follow up and say too, like, we saw our data last year, it just
Yes.
didn't get released. and we
Yeah.
couldn't release it, but we had, our data was strong last year too. We didn't see anybody else's data, but we saw ours and we were happy with our test scores. Even in that year coming out of COVID and they didn't release them, we were happy with our test scores last year, so. We just keep showing.
Anyone have any questions? Sorry, I feel like I went over that really fast. There's a lot.
Yeah. Mrs. Wolf, across the board, not across the board, but the majority on the ELA side of things, it seems like all schools have been raised over the years that continue to drop.
The ELA test is extremely intense. You're looking at about 7 different passages that kids have to read at one time, through the test, and each passage is about 30 paragraphs. So our kids, we're working a lot on stamina and building that stamina up to read for hours, or how to actually attack that test properly, more of like an ACT test and not what we teach kids to read everything, go back, search and find your answers. We're trying to figure out ways to manipulate it a little bit more so they're not spending 6 hours taking this test, because it could take them that long.
If it's not a timed.
It is not a timed
So they take as much time as they need, but for some students, that is
It is a long time.
overwhelming, it's a long time.
It is a lot.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thanks for being here and presenting
Yes.
all that to us. It's appreciated. Good news, right? That's why we're here. So that takes us into our curriculum reports. We have language arts up first. I think we have Mr. Dewey here tonight.
Yep.
There. The floor is yours, sir.
Sweet. So I think number one, as we adopted the new curriculum across the board, I think we're seeing a lot of improvements and a lot of consistency ranging from middle school to high school. I know high school wise, starting from freshman year onward, there is a focus on preparing them for that ACT, so that eventually when they get to me, since I teach English 11, they're prepared and they've built a foundation of skills that'll get them to score higher on the ACT. A part of the new curriculum as well, I think there are more challenging texts. There's more differentiation from informative text to creative text to poetry. So you're seeing students interact with various types of literature. Along with that, the projects I know specifically from the high school point of view, both Mr. McKee and I incorporate creative writing. I have a creative writing class that is offered as an opportunity for students to take argumentative writing, research writing, informative writing. And so they're able, I think part of the best ways to build skills essential to not only English language arts, but other courses like biology or mathematics or the critical thinking aspect. 1, 2, being able to consume information and comprehend it and then apply it. And so English language arts is focused on not just looking at all these creative stories that, yes, are a little bit more interesting to understand, but having them delve more into informative writing that they will come across cross-curricularly. Other than that, we have, like, I know for the slow goals as well, slow goals are, I think is that down a little bit for up a little bit, slow goals. Mr. McKee, I can't necessarily speak on the middle school behalf because I haven't necessarily dived super deep into their slow goals, but I know Mr. McKee and I have had several meetings where we are trying to find consistency for those slow goals so that we can see the data progress from freshman year all the way up until their seniors. Apart from that, we also have grammar, which I think the grammar aspect, we have these consumables that they now have from 7th to 12th grade. These are highly beneficial for the sense that they're interacting with questions that they will see when they get to that ACT their junior year. And so as long as they're progressively building those skills, that should benefit them for years to come. Further down, let's see. I think a lot of, I know a lot of the English teachers do a good job of communicating when students need to go to grip, when missing assignments are there, and what needs to be completed. The grip is run in one of the English language departments, Ms. Johnson, so any students who are struggling in English happen to go to an English teacher who can provide them with good help. Our general classroom strategies are pretty consistent across the board. I know Mr. McKee, I will say Mr. Finks could probably comment on this, but Mr. McKee's class played a nice interactive learning game with it was a 10th grade for Lord of the Flies. And so I think we've also done that, and some of my students are actually here today. Like in my honors class, we reenacted all of the Crucible last year, and I plan on doing that again with my students this year. So building a very interactive environment with the students. Apart from that, like I said earlier, I think some of the enrichment opportunities that they do have is that they can get another English credit in creative writing, which I end up teaching, which allows them to build more creative writing skills, which translate to other writing because they have to utilize the English language in an advanced creative way. And so conveying that information is really important, and it'll benefit cross-curricularly. Last year, and then last part of this, and then should be done. We have John Baylor ACT Prep. I know previous years we've used that John Baylor ACT Prep strictly in the TA period. From my experience last year with the science and mathematics, John Baylor, there wasn't a whole lot of student interaction with it, and they didn't really necessarily put forth full effort because they knew that there wasn't a grade attached to it. I had taken on that John Baylor English portion, in which case I had it in my classroom, and just because there's that incentive of a grade, they paid more attention, and during the assessments, they had a little bit more attentive behaviors towards interacting with those questions. And I think from for ACT ELA, our numbers jumped last year higher than the previous year. And I know historically that senior class I taught for college comp last year was kind of like the epoch of the English language arts. And so to see that rise, that consistent rise, was really beneficial. And I look forward to seeing hopefully that rise again this next year. So.
Thank you. Any questions?
Mr. Dewey, I'm curious, you mentioned ACT a lot. How do you balance, because obviously I know there's a lot of focus on that ACT, but after that ACT is over, whether it's college, English, writing, reading, how do you balance all that prep with focus on the ACT, but also focus on whether it's college prep in those areas, whether it's the trades or life after high school? How do you kind of balance that?
Yeah, so I would say the biggest thing, especially for English, developing critical thinking skills, which students who come to school should learn how to, okay, here's my problem, I need to figure it out and find a solution, which is what's going to benefit most of the students who are going to be jumping into the workforce. And so giving them something to focus on, but that's also how you succeed on an ACT, where you're using critical thinking skills so that you aren't stuck reading every single word of a passage, and that you find reading strategies that benefit you, and you strategize the ACT in a way that you would strategize a job outside of the academic sphere. And especially, we have a lot of students who aren't going to be we have a lot of students who go to college, but not all of them are striving for graduate school or doctorates, and a lot of them find their way into the workforce. So building those critical thinking skills are essential to a lot of the students at this high school. A part of that, there's a lot of students who want to succeed and go on to college as well. And those writing skills and reading skills, like I just talked to Barrett Nelson, who graduated last year. He was up at the basketball game, and he goes, man, 5-page papers. That's like a walk in the park these days. And I think a big, just hearing that from the students, it's awesome to hear. But just knowing that we're preparing them at that level so that when they get the 10-page, 20-page papers in college, like they're like, okay, I'm confident with these 5-page to 10-page papers, which they complete a 10-page paper at the end of their senior year. If I can do that with confidence, I can build from that as I go on to college in the future.
You should have seen the reaction.
I was gonna say. All the kids have facial expressions.
That's their next semester.
There's a lot of reaction during the entire.
Don't say you won't work.
Good.
Thank you very much for being here tonight.
Mhm.
Appreciate you. All right, so third grade, we have Mrs. Linslager. Am I getting that correct?
Yeah, you're good.
All right, okay.
So I'm gonna start with the multicultural aspect. So our stories in our reading curriculum, in my view, focus on the multicultural part. We also incorporate multiculturalism into social studies lessons by teaching about people who originated in our country. So that's part of the social studies curriculum. And then we also talk about holidays around the world a lot of the times and teach them where a lot of those holidays originated. What we want students to learn, multiplication, division, are, I always think, kind of almost the two biggest things of third grade. So we spend a lot of time on that. We have skip counting songs for each number that we work on, and then we work on practicing facts and memorizing them. So they're mastered by the end of third grade. We do time tests to earn ice cream for a party we do in the spring. And we do a popcorn party for division in April too. So that kind of motivates them. They like having a reward. We do cursive, which not all schools do, and the kids get really excited about. We also work on social emotional skills and citizenship. That's just kind of every day. There's random moments that we teach those things as things come up. Slow goals this year are focused on fast bridge intervention. So we progress monitor bi-weekly to monitor students on their fluency and comprehension. The writing and reading standards this year, they're definitely more rigorous than the old ones. So we're using the new curriculum to help students learn to meet those standards. How we know students are learning AR goals, so we have a goal for each quarter for a certain amount of points and then comprehension. And they also get rewarded each time they earn AR points. I have a wall that they move over and they get dojo dollars that they earn towards the store for that. So just kind of giving them incentive to want to read. Then NSCAs and Fast Bridge scores, which we did Fast Bridge reading last week. We're going to do Fast Bridge math this week, and then we'll do NSCAs in January. Fontes Sentinel, which is where we read one-on-one with students and see what level they're at. Class participation just through Kahoot, note cards, homework, reading and spelling tests, small group instruction for math and reading. And then how do we respond when students are not learning? We use the SOP process quite a bit, leveled math and reading groups with the teacher, repeat and review lessons if there's something we can tell a lot of students are struggling on, small group instruction. And then how we extend or enrich learning for students who are exceeding proficiency is literature circles. So that's where students have a chapter book they're assigned, and then there's different jobs for each of the students where they meet and then they discuss that chapter book together. Differentiated homework and math, advanced spelling lists, and then math and reading groups are based on their present levels, and I change those, or people change those multiple times throughout the year, so that we're able to kind of teach to their level within math and reading. And then just some other information. Science and social studies, students get 4 times a week, so I'm teaching science and Mrs. Gill is teaching social studies. Any questions?
You said the students get excited about cursive. I'm shocked by that. Is there a reason that they say they get excited about it? Or is it
I
just
think they just want to be able to write it and like sign their names. I think it's cool when adults sign their names. It's part of it. And then, I don't know, that's always something they seem really excited about. They ask about the very beginning of the year and their parents ask about. And then I like to do my read aloud while they're working on their cursive. So I think they also get excited to listen to whatever chapter book we're reading as part of it too. So, yeah. Yep.
So send them notes in cursive and we'll
See if they can read it.
Right, yeah. Santa Claus notes.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you both for being here. I would just add that it's always great to get these curriculum updates and see how in-depth and passionate our teachers are about what we do up here, and you know, we thank you guys. It's a team effort here, so appreciate everything you do.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome, and you're welcome to stay for the whole meeting if you'd like.
You can leave. You're more than welcome
You
to
can leave
leave.
right now if you want. Yeah. Everybody's, that's you kids.
You can
Yeah.
I'll bite the bullet.
All right, item 5 is our quarterly review of our annual district plan.
That's no way to put it.
Dr. Lewis, I think there's just a few,
There are a
Quick
few
updates on here.
additions, yeah,
Mhm.
this tends to be kind of the time of year where things have been implemented and,
Yeah.
current things, so we're kind of winding down and we're getting ready for the next time we review, which will be a full board in our workshop, so. But just a few things that we've added there in the whole area of budget, because we already talked about that in September, but we received a donation from an alumni who wanted to give to the school. He also donates to the foundation to send one of our staff members to train for the Letters program, which is an intervention that Mrs. Wolf and Mrs. Morgan and she left. Teachers like Mrs. Winslager would love to implement at the elementary level as an intervention to support our new reading curriculum. So when we looked at that last year, we realized it was out of budget to train everybody. Plus, we were implementing Power School, and they had a new curriculum, and we didn't want to overwhelm them with new, and now this new too. So we kind of put that on hold. And when Mr. Bouchard, I think I'm saying that right, I'm not sure, somebody who's more from here. Okay.
That was the one I've never
Yeah.
heard of.
Okay.
Never heard of it.
So, well, he knows Ed Mencken well. So there we go.
Okay.
Works for the company. He actually works for the company that publishes the Letters training. He said, I have an inside track there. And so he agreed to send one of our staff people to be trained. And then the foundation will, it was proposed this month, but we didn't have enough members to have a quorum at our November board meeting, so we'll decide in January. But I think that they're going to match that and send a second, so we can have 2 staff members fully trained by the company and then bring that back to everybody. But Todd also asked us to push that out to all alumni to see if anybody else wants to join us. So we are very grateful for that. So we'll skip that in the superintendent report because that's on here. But that is about a $3,500 donation.
when will that take place, that training?
As soon as kind of we get it scheduled. I know Mrs. Wolf leaves you. She was supposed to be coordinating with Todd to figure out when they were
Oh,
going
so
to get
soon.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
so soon. And then the music department received a grant for more microphones for the musical. If you have been at the musical, you hear an awful lot. Like, please turn off your cell phones or put them in airplane mode because it's going to interfere with the microphones. So this will make it better. That kind of situation better. You'll still hear, please turn off your cell phones. But Mrs. Massey and Mrs. Crosland did tell me that will improve the sound quality of what we're getting for our musicals. So there have been some nice things that we didn't have to pay for out of the budget, so we're grateful for that. In the area of community engagement, I think we know we have an engagement meeting to talk about that we're planning in January, so I won't talk about that too much here, but we're also trying to get everybody in the holiday spirit by sending out staff members' holiday traditions. So if you're watching those on Twitter or Facebook, they're coming out daily. We grouped in a few more people to catch yet, but I really enjoyed hearing everybody talk about. And I don't know if you've noticed in the videos when people start talking about them, they kind of light up and they smile a little bit more, and you can kind of see them walking back through their childhood, some of their memories, and so it's just really fun to do those. So I hope that media is enjoying that and getting to know a little bit more about the people that are on staff here that they maybe didn't have, that they hadn't met yet. In the area of facilities, we're working right now focusing on the kitchen equipment. So the pieces that were already purchased will be installed over Christmas. And we have the other things. I think some of the improvements that we voted to go ahead with in November some of them will have to take place over the summer because it will take longer than just the 2 weeks over Christmas. So that's our focus there. In the final phase, it's not on here, but the final phase of the lockers should be done tomorrow. That has been.
We're optimistic.
Yeah, I don't know if you read your email today or not, but it's taking just about as long to get the lockers done as it took the entire rest of the addition to get built.
Yeah.
But it's okay, it's gonna happen tomorrow. Yeah, okay. In the area of student performance, we just had a great report of our data and how much we've grown even in adversity when it came to our student learning, which is what we had hoped for. We thought we were making good decisions during COVID, keeping kids here as much as we possibly could and only going online when absolutely necessary for those kids, and the teachers grew a lot too, but I think we can see that what we did was the right thing, because we didn't lose an awful lot of ground, and that's shown in there.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're gonna celebrate that with the kids. We're celebrating it with the staff this month. We had a breakfast for them one day, and we gave them a few extra days of celebration in the way of kind of relaxing a little bit, wearing jeans, doing some fun things during the season with the staff. And when kids come back, we're going to do some celebrating with them as well, because they're the ones that did all the learning. The teachers did the teaching, but the kids did the learning. So. And then in the goal of behavioral and mental health, we adopted a couple of policies that have been good for our kids, and a couple of policies, but that therapy animal policy, sometimes you wonder how well it's going to work out, but then when you see it in action, and when you see some kids really do speak more about their emotions and their emotional state when they do have like a comfort animal there, and you see that in action, I think that's really been a good thing. It's been an important policy, and it has not seemed to be like an interference in the day-to-day, which we're a little bit concerned about. It seems to be like a really strong addition to what our counselor through the Communities That Care grant, the Systems of Care grant from the ESU 3 has been. So that's been really good. So those grants continue to expand and roll out. Our next phase probably in those will be how to continue to provide those services when some of those grants expire. So it'll be a couple of years down the road.
So we've had a therapy dog come in.
We have now. Yep, Mrs. She's got Eads Hamilton. Well, it's a hyphenated last name, so I didn't know which one she went by yet. But when she comes, I think one of the 2 days a week, sometimes both days, she brings Shadow with her, and he sits in the office with her when she is counseling students. And once in a while, we do a little bit of office animal therapy too, just when she's coming and going.
Sure.
We're dog people, so it's kind of nice. But the students really do connect. Sometimes they just need that kind of a catalyst to get them to open up and to talk. So, and I think too, this one was part of our celebration for our test scores as well. We did have a full staff breakfast, and during that time, we did not allow the staff to talk about work. We didn't allow them to talk about test scores, and we didn't talk about student learning, or we didn't talk about the next assessment that they had to give. We just let them talk to each other, and we walked around and made sure they were laughing with each other and enjoying one another, which we think is really good for positive culture and mental health of our staff as well.
Okay.
Do you guys have anything else to add to this? I'm kind of went through them, but did anything pop in your mind as we were going through?
It's kind of hard to believe we're only 2 months away from the board retreat where we really dive into these.
Right.
And, so planning that will probably be on January's agenda.
Mm-hmm.
So that brings us down into principals reports. Mrs. Morgan, I'll
Yes,
start with you.
all right, we had Sing Across Nebraska. Arlington had 15 fifth and sixth graders that participated, and they did that in Lincoln. Arlington had the most students of any school there participating, and they do it through an audition process that's selected. So we got a pretty rockin' vocal music and instrumental, but vocal music in this regard going. So good stuff there. Fast Bridge testing, like Mrs. Wolf said, has begun. We are in Fast Bridge. We are doing our NSCIS testing after break this year, which we have typically like crammed Fast Bridge and NSCIS before break. But we're trying to divide that up a little bit and see if we can't get some different results on some of those things. So we are fifth and sixth grade.
Any questions?
Oh, yes, and my question. Yes, fifth and sixth grade, and then kinder, first and second. It was kind of all lumped together. Fifth and sixth grade band, and then we had kinder through second grade choir singing. It was a fabulous night. Lots of fun. They were super sweet. I love watching kindergartners sing, because if you've ever seen like Pure Joy in a Human, it's a kindergartner singing a Christmas song. Like, I don't know any other way to put it, but right up until we had a vomiting incident at the end, but right up until that moment.
It was going great, huh?
It was good,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, memories for a lifetime. Somebody be videotaping that today. So yeah, lots and lots of fun. There were lots of people in the gym. Thank you to the custodians because they were in and out and cleaning and they were fabulous, so. Professional learning communities, you heard Mr. Gold talk about this, so I'm not gonna go too much more in depth, but there's that. Good. Sunshine rainbow.
Lots of highlights there.
Picture, boy.
I know. Hey, I do want to
There's
say
your
though, for
time
the
to
record,
shine.
mine was first in. Usually I'm like the last one because I'm looking for just right pictures. I was the first one in this time, but no pictures, so.
You don't mention vomiting, we've got it one tonight. Mr.
Oh, that's.
Johnson, so-
Oh, you got pictures too.
I got pictures too.
Man, it's already done deal.
I got something these guys and gals may want to hear too, so. Here we go. All right, couple highlights. Freshman health class, CPR certified now, so we like to keep that as an ongoing thing. The Metro Community College update, we have a new coordinator for us, a career navigator. He's been here a couple times already working, especially with second semester coming up. We'll have a lot of registrations and things to process through that he will help us with, so that working very closely with Holly, our counselor. Our Hugh O'Brien youth representative is this the leadership selection for Colby Ty. So he's been selected to represent us at Colby this summer. A couple of highlights from FFA, the LDEs. We had the officer team was district champions. We had 2 state qualifiers, discovery speaking and ag literacy. And then we had some finalists in addition in Creed employment skills and senior pub. So all of those were good results. I think this is more of like speaking, different things that way as opposed to, yeah. So Mrs. Egler was very impressed with our students and how they represented us. So, and then on the business side of things, we had UNL business competition. We had a couple placers there at UNL. So I wanted to highlight that. This is just a FYI. The end of the semester is Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. 8:05 start time, 1:30 dismissal time. We do half finals on one day, the other half on the second day. But just as an update there. Couple grant funding things that came through. The art department wanted to thank everybody, the Pug Mill and basically, what is it, a clay recycler is up and running. They got it going. It's very efficient for them. Yep. So wanted to publicly thank them. We'll probably have, it was captured in somewhere else in the board meeting here about the microphones. Very much appreciate the grant funds that the community is providing for us. We are ringing the red kettle bell ringing for the Salvation Army. So if you see out in front of Casey's, they've been gracious to let us stand there and ring bells. So appreciate that. And then this is a FYI for the board to know. I don't know if it's anything more than that, other than you need to know what I'm asking and what I've asked Dr. Lewis, and what will affect, especially seniors next semester, but more so everybody as we move forward. So this is a proposal to Dr. Lewis that we're bringing to you. What am I doing? I'm changing the size of that. That's not what I'm trying to do.
I think they just want to hear what it's all about.
Yeah.
Suspension's killing the secret.
Well, so this, this is our calendar-wise most unlucky senior class as far as where graduation falls, just because the third Sunday is not until the 21st. So that's unfortunate for this crew. Here's what I'm proposing, is that one of the areas of focus that's taken a little bit of a hit since COVID is attending school every day. Like, being here every day should be the standard, and it is the standard. But with online learning that took place during COVID, and with the skills that our students and our staff developed during that time, as far as being able to not lose a lot of their educational, I just say, opportunity. If they weren't here, then we've seen attendance actually through the doors take a hit. All right, so what I want to do is start to find ways to reverse that. That being here with their teachers is the best place for them to get the best out of their education. It's the best way for us to make an impact for them daily. So if they're not here, it's more difficult to be able to make that impact. So having said all of that, what I'm proposing and ask Dr. Lewis for grace with is a semester exam exemption policy based on attendance and tardies and behavior and things like that. But a big driver for this is to make a difference with attendance. So what this is we have semester exams at the high school level. What it would look like for our kids 9th through 12th grade is that they would be able to, not for this semester, but starting next semester, that they would be able to exempt their finals and not be here during finals if they are passing the class. They have 3 or fewer absences, fewer than 3 tardies, they have no in-school, out-of-school suspensions, and they've paid their fines and their fees. So basically, it is rewarding. It is a way to have the potential to reward those who have been here the whole time, throughout the whole year, in a way that they have already proven and shown that they have mastered the course content by passing the courses, and then that's us saying you have met the requirements. So that would be for us to track that, and they would have to know where they're at and all that kind of stuff with it. But then they would be able to, instead of taking their finals, which they still could opt to take them, then they could be done with their semester 2 days earlier if they were passing everything and they met the requirements. So that's what all of this says, and then it gives different things that wouldn't count for an absence, like documented college visits and military visits and different things that way, and a variety of things. But things that would count still would be if you're absent, you're sick, you're absent, you're not here. Even if you're sick, it still counts against this, because the point is to get you here.
And kind of driving this, if you don't mind, if I just
Yeah.
add a little bit more, because if you dive deeper into that Nebraska education profile that we looked at for Arlington, and you look at the full data download, and we can download a document that's basically called our APS classifications. If you start looking, the older our students get, so at the highest level at the high school, because they break them down by elementary, middle school, and high school, our rate of excessive absenteeism, that's what the state considers more than like 10 or more days absent per semester, or 20 days total, is much higher at the high school level than it is at any other level. And it's almost to the level where they would have like downgraded us a score, from great to good based on excessive absenteeism of students. So at some point in time, we knew we had to address it, and they've given us grace on that this year because there are schools that are in worse condition than we are as far as excessive absenteeism, and COVID didn't do anybody any favors because it's much easier for everybody, it seems, to stay home. So we know that I think it was between 10 and 15% was our rate of excessive absenteeism. That means 10 to 15% of high school students were missing 10 days per semester, which is a lot. And data shows that students that miss more than 20 days per school year do significantly lower on their assessments. They don't learn as much, whether they have access to online learning at home or not, and they can actually complete the assignments. They don't learn that to the level of understanding or the level of mastery that they need. So we knew we needed to address it, but somehow out there, it's it's turned into like, we report to the county attorney at 10 days. It's almost like there's a conception out there that, or misconception, I should say, out there that they feel like that means they have 10 days and
Yeah.
they're good. They don't have 10 days. They're
Mhm.
required to be in school. It's a mandatory attendance. We have to report excessive absenteeism to the county attorney at 10 days. So we kind of need to like shift that narrative and give students the incentive to be at school. And for some of them, hey, getting done a couple of days early because you don't have to take your semester tests. Hopefully is a nice reward and a payoff for their dedication to showing up and being here and being present.
Aaron, I know you must have put a lot of thought into this. I'm just curious. One of the points for the guys on there that surprised me was that student just needs to have a passing grade in that class.
Yeah.
I kind of thought you'd see like a
Yeah.
B or above type of thing.
Yeah.
And I know you've probably
We
thought a
talked
lot
about
about it.
We had quite a bit of debate about
Yeah.
that because honestly, and we did this, the beginnings of it was in leadership team for our campus. And that's what I proposed was a B or better
Mhm.
in a class. Because for me, a B says, okay, you've mastered that
You
concept. or
understand
whatever
it,
else.
yeah.
Through the course of conversations about, okay, what that would look like for different students and different students showing that they have mastered the contents to the greatest extent possible for that student.
Mhm.
Having a semester exam, say that you, whatever, got a 72 or a 75 or whatever on that semester exam, was not really the point of what this policy is driven, but driving this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we went back and forth about basically what standard for grade
At the end of the day, it's
should
about
be.
the attendance.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For-
so,
Yeah.
well, and at the end of the day is that's what we would ask of any student is to be here every day.
Mhm.
And they're showing that they're here every day. We believe that if they're here every day, we've got the best chance to get the most out of them, so. That's what it's driven with. So, well, there's some concessions made as far as, okay,
Right.
3 days, 4 days, passing grade versus a C versus,
Oh, I understand.
Yeah.
I understand that.
yeah, yeah. So, and I don't know, I mean, ultimately, will it be a driving factor with, you know, students here a little bit, or in a second semester looks a little different for seniors. It may help with that a little bit, but is this something that'll have a motivating factor or not? I don't know. It's something that I have experienced utilizing from past schools, so.
Okay.
And it was a driving factor, and
Yeah.
it was something that meant something, and it was it's a nice reward.
Sure.
I mean,
Do we have a lot of students that push the edge to say where they think they got 10 days, but so they're.
Well, the state data said, it was, I can't remember the exact,
Yeah,
for some reason in my head in high school, the state data said 15% had exceeded that.
From
we had to
Arlington,
report.
or is that
No,
just state?
From Arlington, yeah.
Bruce, we're fortunate. I mean, legitimately, we're fortunate. We have great kids. I mean, we do. We're trying to get them through the door to be here, and we have that going on for the most part. I just think that just over the course of, I don't know, just the last few years and whatever, there's just been less urgency to be here every day. And I think that's a great place to, hey, if we're gonna try to figure out a way to work this and have our kids here more frequently, I think that's a great thing. Because I just know that it could look a lot different.
Is that stemming from, say this, from home, where the kids aren't getting here? Because I guess I look at it with the COVID, just knowing what my wife deals with, and the company that she works for, they opt that the employees can work from home.
Yeah.
And the efficiency level that she's dealing with is just tanked.
Yeah.
Because adults
Yeah.
are preferring to stay home and work, and they're not doing their work. So
Yeah.
Is that driving this? The kids aren't getting to school on time or not coming at all because of that, where there's just
That's a good question. I think our students.
no urgency
Yeah,
or no
and in fairness,
guidance from home?
I think it's very, we have students who have to work full-time jobs, and that's, there's an urgency there that's, okay, yeah, I know I need to graduate. I've got a full-time job to go to, or I gotta help provide for the family, and there's some that, I don't know, I think it's a variety, but I do know that a piece of what you're talking about, the answer would be yes. Is that there's a belief that
Yeah.
I can still get this done, or my child can still get that done and not be there. So I took basically 0 questions about what online learning platforms we had before COVID.
Right.
Like nobody asked,
There you go.
could my child do that from home? Now I field that question more frequently, is what online learning platform do you have? Can't my child just do that from home? Different things like that. And as we sit right now, I know of no law that it concedes to schools to say, yes, you can provide that as a reason for, to avoid an attendance law.
Not yet.
So,
Interesting stuff.
Yeah.
So we want to be included, I think, in the updates.
yeah,
Yeah, I think it's nice to know that it's a problem it's not a problem yet, but it's something that
Yeah.
like Nebraska has brought to your attention and you're already acting on it. So it's nice to know that you're already paying attention to a possible problem.
there will be, got some other ideas as far as, especially as it relates to seniors, that you may hear about next semester as we talk as a committee, because, it's just other ways to incentivize being here. So we'll keep you up to date with this. We have to make sure that our codes match with what we are putting in the system and all that kind of stuff, so we pull accurate data too. So all of this goes to, we also have a new student management system of Power School, and we have to put in the right codes to make sure we pull the data, that we're being fair to the kids that we're pulling the data with, so.
Yeah, that's the next portion.
Yep.
Thanks. Mr. Shady's got an athletic report on here. I think I would just say this evening, go through it if you haven't already. If you have any questions, track down Mr. Shada. So that brings us to our superintendent's report, Dr. Lewis. The first is our alley cap inspection. For the benefit of everybody that doesn't know all the education acronyms yet, I always got to remind myself to do this.
Alley cap is, I won't try and say, it is our insurance. It's
Right.
all lines, insurance, and
Mhm.
something.
Yeah, so the inspection report.
Yes,
that
the
we're looking
inspection
at.
report, they send a representative around every year, they walk through, they sit down with me, they answer some questions about some of our procedures and some of our policies, and then they do a walkthrough of the warrants. And they look at some specific things that all could potentially lead to a workman's comp issue, or could lead to like some sort of an accessibility issue or something like that, and then they kind of point them out. So they came out on November 15th, and we had that meeting. So if you go to the second page of the report, is really where we just need to focus, and I won't spend too much time on that because you can read as well. But there's first of all a list of commendations. So some of the commendations were some of the things that we fixed from the report last year, and some other things, changing some lighting things so they're more noticeable. Enhanced levels of safety in the shop and things like that. And then they have some recommendations that we'll tackle and we'll work on. Tornado signs in each room, I'll have to go through and look at those and make sure that those are visible. They're recommending, they don't need it. And again, these are all recommendations. These aren't fix this now or we'll drop your insurance. These are recommendations, but the addition of a grease fire extinguisher in the FCS kitchen. Mr. Hart doesn't do an awful lot of cooking with like grease, like deep frying or anything like that, but they're recommending that they have that in there. A little bit of a change to something in the weight room. The ground-based jammers need to be anchored to the floor. and the fire exit in the corner was partially blocked at that time by a weight rack, so those are easy to correct. We already had a plan, for number 6, which was part of the kitchen renovations that we have, but the ice machine in the training room needs a GFI, and Mr. Reed can take care of that. In between the shop and the ag room, they asked to have this door installed that could be locked between the 2 rooms, and Mr. Fisher said, no, you cannot have that, so we have to
Yeah.
minimum unlock that door. It can't be locked at any point in time between those 2 rooms. He's recommending that we remove that door completely.
It's an egress path, probably.
Yes, it is, and because of the size of the space they need.
Mhm.
So, anyway,
All
and
in
then
all,
to continue to work on, the ventilation, which we had talked about a little bit, as part of the adoption for the business and the ag things that we're doing this year, or the welding, so that would be for sure. So, overall, it's a good report.
Yeah.
What came out of that was important too, and I think it's on the first page, but that our workman's comp modifier went down, so that means next year our insurance will cost a little bit less, so that's good. So we went from $1.09 to
71.
or 1.09 to 0.87 to 0.71, so that's really good. It's a good ratio there, so. The next item I have is those agenda items from NASB, which is the Nebraska Association for School Boards and the Nebraska Rural Community School Association. I did not receive the next one in time for the agenda, but the NASB one is attached there, so you can review that. By statute, I'm required to put in writing, which the agenda is in writing for you, the timeline for superintendent contract renewal. So it needs to be an agenda item to offer contract to superintendent in January. If it is not, and I have not heard in writing by 7 days after the January meeting that you do not intend to renew my contract, it automatically renews for a year. And since it is not a new contract, but a continuing contract, the advertising for the salary and benefits wouldn't have to happen in January, but when we do approve the salary for the contract, it would have to be posted 3 days prior to the meeting. If it was, yes, and if it was a new one, it would be 20 days prior. So next
Okay.
month, that will be something that we'll talk about a little bit more. So. And then again, expression of gratitude for that donation for the letters training from our alumni, Mr. Todd Bouchard, and then the AAF donation that we anticipate. So we're very grateful to have very supportive people that believe in what we're doing, and we love being able to help out the Mrs. Wilson and Mrs. Winslayers and all of our great teachers that we have in the elementary with this program. So we're really grateful for that donation. The bus barn and the fuel tank. So we were talking about this. So the bus barn, the fuel tank is installed. The electrical is hooked up. We've got the inspection scheduled. He said he will come either tomorrow or Wednesday to do the inspection. We talked to Bob about getting it filled with the right blend of fuel for this time of year. I have a meeting. I've been checking my email since about 3 o'clock this afternoon, but I believe Thursday afternoon is when we will meet with the village representative and then EMS representative to discuss how a share of that could look like. They have both said that they were out on the purchase of it.
Yeah.
But we did, since we do not have.
Sorry.
You okay?
I don't know.
Since we do not have diesel in town right now, there can be times when they're really in a bind if they don't have access to that. So we will discuss then the shared use of that tank. We know for our own purposes, it's going to be, it has to be accessible to our bus drivers first, but we will give them codes so in emergency, they can, if EMS needs now fuel, gotta go to stop and fill up, or, the village is really in a bind and they are running low and they can't get over to get filled up somewhere else, either at Washington or wherever, that they would be able to use that too. So we will sit down and hammer out the details of that. And again, there is, in order to run the program that separates those out and says, this is your code and this is your code and this is your code, there's an ongoing monthly fee that I wasn't aware of when we did this deal. It wasn't part of anything that we were told. So I'll probably propose to them to split that fee. I know that they're not in on the purchase of that. We went
Sure.
forward knowing that they would not purchase, but perhaps split that fee and then we'll talk about, how
Yeah.
we want to monitor that and how we would bill that out and things like
Makes sense.
Sure.
so all of
Okay.
that is happening and Bob may have gotten to fill it today.
Oh,
And
okay.
so as soon as they're here to inspect it, we can start.
Cool. That's great.
It is good. The timing couldn't be better. So. Our enrollment report, these are figures that I took out of Power School, so you can take some time to review those. From October 1st, that snapshot, our numbers are up by 8 students across various grade levels, not in any one particular area. So our grand total is 355 in the elementary, including preschool, and 344, 7 through 12, for a grand total of 699 as of December 6th, when I pulled the report out of Power School. And then you have our option numbers here as well, which have changed by 1 student. I think we've gone down 1 student in the in versus out since October 1st snapshot as well.
Ms. Morgan, you've gained 9 students in 2 months.
We have had a very active influx of students. We're gonna get a couple more after the new year as well, so.
Obviously,
stuff.
just people moving into the district,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's,
Yeah.
there was,
They heard
I
about
think
us,
at least
they're
one
flocking.
new, was it a 7th grader? We may have had, one move out and one move in, I think in 7th grade too, but yeah, it's been mostly at the elementary, so.
Mrs. Morgan, I got a quick question
Yeah.
because Cassie and I were talking about it. So you see 2nd grade and then 3rd grade and you go back the years.
Yeah.
Why is that such a low grade class?
I don't know.
Compared to all the rest of them, there's just, that's
Quiet
the only
year.
one that
Yeah.
really sticks out.
I don't know.
It's
quiet year.
It was a quiet.
It was apparently.
So and strangely, the more you look at, the more time you spend in schools, you realize the bigger classes are always the ones that get bigger. So if 6th grade is your biggest
Yeah.
class, you can bet dollars to donuts that the next kid that moves into town is gonna be a 6th grader. And if 2nd grade is your smallest class, you can almost guarantee that you're not gonna ever have another 2nd grader move into town. I don't know why, they just,
Usually at the pool in the summer when I see kids, I'm like, I don't know that kid. I'm like, they're a 4th grader. 2 kids in there.
Yeah.
And I'm usually right. Yeah. It is true. Yeah, I don't know. I
That's
don't know.
just
but I've just
interesting
seen
to
that,
see.
yeah, year after year, in just about every school I've been in. If it's a big class, it just keeps on getting. Small ones just kind of stay small.
You notice that 5th grade class, used to look like 37 and it has, or not 5th, sorry, I'm sorry, 6th. Used to look like 37 and it's,
We did
we're
have
up.
We'd have a.
Yeah, and we're in 2 sections in that, we're in that grade, but
Yeah,
yeah, we've got,
and it was smaller only, yeah.
And then you see a big jump when you get into high school because you're getting St. Paul kids and,
You get some St. Paul's kids and you get a few more options, but I haven't seen an awful lot of options. The past 3 years or so to get into high school, kindergarten is a big push where we get lots of applications and then it's just a sprinkling.
that 7th grade group has been large from the get-go.
yeah.
They just,
Yeah.
there's a lot of them.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then you also have paper copies. My last item on here is a review of our annual report. This is different than Nebraska Education Report, but we are required to publish this every year. So you've got copies. Anybody here wants one? We can print them for you. You can have this one. I only had like a dozen or so pass out here tonight. But since we had the grants for the art, I really wanted to feature something in the arts there. So we have a student working on pottery there on the front, but on the inside, it kind of has a snapshot of, and most of this can be found too, if you go into that NEP and you dive into our full data portfolio on the State Department of Education website, you can find all this too. But what you can't find on there are the highlights on the bottom of page 3, where we added the things about our student achievements and what we're doing in the elementary and what we're doing in activities. Some things too to kind of take a look at this is based on last year's data, of course, for the 21-22 certificated staff. Our average years of experience is kind of right in there with the state, but we have more teachers with master's degree, which kind of drives our costs up a little bit. So our teachers are compensated as far as the state average a little bit higher, but when you have more teachers with master's degrees, they're further over in the salary schedule, and that makes sense. It's got everything about our levy over the past few years. It's got our transportation facts and figures. And then on the back page, it's got our student achievement scores and everything like that too. So the one correction that has been made, I believe, let me check and see. I should already did that. Yes, on the, this is a copy. It has been corrected since then, but on the back page, when you look at the ACT 2022 average score by subtest, it says 2019 and then it says 2020 and 2021. And then it says maroon. The maroon dot is also 2020, 2021. That should be 2021, 2022. So that's just the one misprint that's on there, and Shelley was going to have them correct that. ESU helps us with this report, so just a quick little change there, but that's the only thing that will be changed. So this will be available on our website, and if anybody wants a copy, they can come and grab it too, and we'll make sure that everybody in the public knows that it's available. If they want to grab a copy, they can. If anybody wants to take mine with them this evening, they can absolutely do that too.
Okay. We do have a couple committee reports tonight. The first was the Finance Committee. Chase and Jason and I and Dr. Lewis met with the auditor. Help me out with her name, please.
Brenda Van Pola from
Brenda
Shawville and Everett.
Pola, yeah. Last week to go over the audit, of which everybody has a copy of here in front of you, and there's a.
If you didn't get a copy tonight, that means you're at the committee meeting.
Right.
Already got one, so.
Yeah. So there's an action item later on the agenda to approve the audit. A lot of great conversations. I don't know, Chase or Jason, if you want to pull anything out of there and share with the board. We found some adjusting entries that needed to be made, some practices that needed to be changed, which is really what an auditor's role is to go in and look at what you're doing, not only to look at the numbers in there, but also look at the processes that you have in place surrounding that and recommend changes in processes or changes in accounting methods. And because, right out of the gate, there's a new change in the GAAP accounting methods that really don't affect us, but it changes all the time. Is kind of my point. So a lot of good conversations with her. Generally speaking, the audit's awfully clean. I think Chase asked the question, is there anything in here that should concern us as a board? And the answer was an emphatic no. There's some things that you guys could do a little bit differently. And, there's a lot of discussion about all the change in personnel we've had in the last several years. And maybe we're finally getting worked through that with our processes and what we do. And, there was one example here about how we're now cutting checks out of the hot lunch fund, and things like that. So clearly they do a very thorough job. If you guys want to add anything? Jace?
No, I think this was the first time Jason and I had gone through it, just being new to the committee, so I think it was good just to get a general overview. I can tell you, if you've probably gone through this 5 times, you get this booklet and you look at it and you're like, I don't know what that means. It was she goes through it, explains everything, so it helps out a lot. And like Matt said, he touched upon anything that we needed to know, and there wasn't, just small changes like Matt said, so I thought it was really thorough.
Yeah. So there's an action item later on to approve this audit that we all have. And then on to the negotiations committee. Because we were a board of 5 for a little while, when we entered into the negotiation season, Chase and I took it on. Bruce is also on that committee, but didn't attend the first meeting or 2 because of that. And then with him rolling off, it's just been Chase and I at these meetings. So we have met with the AA's reps twice. And what I'd say is that it's moving along pretty well. And we actually meet again tomorrow. And hopefully we'll make lots of progress there too and have something to bring back to the board in January.
It's Wednesday, right?
Wednesday, we meet on Wednesday.
Okay.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Wednesday. I might be here tomorrow, but you guys won't. We're gonna
We'll
meet
find
Wednesday.
something.
Yeah,
We'll find something.
yeah. Yeah, we will be here, but we'll be in the gym. Anything you want to add, Chase?
No, I think things are progressing as well as they can.
Yeah. And then, so for professional development sharing, it seems like it's been 6 months ago, but it was less than a month ago that we attended the NASB conference in Omaha, down at the Quest Center. Jason, I, Cassie, Bruce, Brian was there, yeah. John was there. Chase and Shannon, I think, had other commitments, but it was good. Always, there's great breakout sessions. There's always a lot to be learned there. They do a good job. It was really interesting to talk to Cassie and Brian, two people that had never been there, and hear their feedback. I think it's what I remember them saying was they had no idea that there were this many people involved in pushing our schools to be excellent. So there's a lot of resources in there.
And they get to attend another new board member training
Right.
tomorrow.
Yes.
So.
We're going tomorrow.
So we have unfinished business. The first item is 9.1 discussion of community engagement meeting to be held January 30th. We've talked to NASB. Marcia Herring does have that date blocked on her calendar for that evening. I've had a couple of phone conversations with Marcia about what I think I'm hearing from everybody on the board, what the board wants this meeting to look like. And, we've done a couple others and I forget who it was, maybe it was Shannon or somebody said when we were talking about this last our meeting, it'd be great if this could be more collaborative with the people that we invite there, with the citizens and, and I think that's right. I think that's what we want to do. We want to have a general meeting or presentation, but we also, to make it productive, we need to limit it to a few important topics, So then the question becomes, Marcia's suggestion is keep it to 2 hours so that if anybody comes, you don't want a 4-hour meeting and you talk somebody into coming in once, you'll never get them back again. Keep it to 2 hours. Somehow poll your community to see what's important to them. And they've got some tools and some suggestions that are attached here and how we may be able to do that. And I may be reading the tea leaves a little wrong here, but I thought that this may end up looking like a presentation on school finances and budget and things like that. That's always a topic that interests people. And then, as a board and as a team at the school, I think we need to celebrate some of our success. Some of the scores we went over tonight, some of the things that are listed on this annual report, the highlights from elementary, middle, and elementary schools, some of the great things that are happening with our kids up here. And then, that other item might be the feedback that we get in some kind of a survey, maybe it turns out that the majority of the people that answer this survey are interested in, career placement or it could be athletics. It might be, and get that information so that we can have a prepared conversation with them. And Marcia from NASB can help moderate that as much or as little as we want her to. And I, am I going in the right direction here? Because I'm kind of having to do this between board meetings and get it moving along. Because we're only a month and a half away. Do you guys like the direction this is headed, or do you have any feedback?
Yes.
Okay.
So we did it, how many years ago did we do it?
Oh, gosh.
8 years, 7 years?
Well, we started when I was on, so it would have been 8 years.
8 years ago? So remember, I really feel like it needs to be more collaborative. We don't want to just talk at them for 2 hours. So
We've done a
remember
couple of them, though, since.
we had small groups and Marcia would ask a question and then everyone in our group would, the chart paper.
Chartboards, yeah.
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 And so I don't know that we need to totally do it that way, but I think it needs to be kind of a
Yeah.
smooshing together of talking at them and then talking with them.
Yeah, there needs to be plenty of opportunity for questions.
Yeah.
You know, and even the setup, you know, we had small group setups with tables. I don't see that happening again in this. I see, you know, because when we did that, then it separates the board members because we had a board member at every table or
Mhm.
somebody on the admin team, I think, sat at tables. And so it kind of,
What I remember, and I think we've done 3 of them. I know we did 2 for sure.
two for the buildings and then one general
Was just the first
community
one.
engagement
Yeah, and
meeting.
the one that was the one that stood out the most was when we had it set up as everybody was sitting in a group.
Yeah.
There was a lot of
Sure.
participation that way.
Okay.
And remember if that was you or
We,
if
I
that
was
was
only in
Lynn's last one.
yeah, it might, so the first one I was in, we were tossing around ideas with like, do we want to add on to the elementary side or do we want to get the elementary?
Okay, so
It turned
the
into
one
that, so.
before that,
So, yeah, it
we
was-
had an actual group.
And we'll have
That
a
might have been in the
chance,
search, I don't know.
we'll have a chance next month to talk in January to talk about this some more. So if you guys would let me start putting together some survey questions and bounce them off of everybody, and then we'll figure out a way to get those out. One best practice that we can work through is, you know, and I remember Marcia going through this before, take every one of your board members and have them write 5 or 6 names down of people that you definitely want to be there and assign that board member to basically go recruit that person to come to the meeting.
That you want to.
Yeah, that you want to invite and try to get that commitment from them. So we'll work on a list. We can do all that in the email, I think, can't
Yeah,
we?
yeah, we can do
Okay.
that.
All right. And any thoughts or ideas, toss them out there. It's hard to work on this at a board meeting when, so that's where we're at there. That is January 30th. We don't have a time set. I think if it's 2 hours, we would start it at 6 or 6:30.
Maybe 6:30 to 8:30.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unless somebody said we better to go later.
I think 6:30 to 8:30 is great.
Okay.
So are you thinking about, besides the list of people, are you still thinking about opening it up to the public?
Oh, yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. Yeah,
bet.
it's just,
Nice if we get other people.
I'm gonna put
Yeah.
Bruce here on my list.
everybody wants to hear.
That's cheating.
I want you to recruit me.
Okay. All right, that brings us into new business. Thanks, everybody. We'll get home before morning, Bruce. Discuss and consider contract with Walsworth for yearbook. Dr. Lewis, I'm gonna let you kind
Yeah.
of explain what's going on here.
Okay, so in, I believe, somewhat accurate nutshell, what has happened is over the past 2 or 3 years, probably every district has struggled a little bit with their yearbooks, but we were hit exceptionally hard in not being able to sell ads and things like that. And you hate to blame COVID on everything, but so what Walsworth has been doing is essentially letting us run at a deficit, thinking that the next year the sales will come back and you'll have more ads and we will kind of whittle away at that deficit a little bit. And I think they've done that for about 3 years now. It's kind of how they've been operating their company and their account with us. And this year they had, I believe, some changes in staffing at Walsworth, and maybe there's some new people taking over accounts and new people managing some of the people that have taken over the accounts. And they said, you've let them run negative on like 3 years collectively. And so we kind of got behind, and now it's time to pay the piper, I think is the best way to say that. So the actual amount that Walsworth, I believe, and Mr. Pinkston is going to help me because his memory is really good with the numbers, that's who is a history teacher. So, I think it was about, I believe they're allowing us to settle up between a $21,000 and $23,000 deficit for about $15,000 by paying for it over 3 years. So that is what this contract is. It is a payment of $5,000 each for the next 3 years to wipe out all of our debt, which is, it's settling up about 60 cents on the dollar of what we owed.
So
Does that
$28,000,
sound right?
wasn't it, was the,
It was, I think it was 24. Mr.
Okay.
Kingston, what is our?
Depends if you counted in this year's book as well.
Right.
But I think with this year's book, it was around 28.
So this 5,000 contract is gonna be in addition to the next year. So next
Right.
year, rough numbers, we get $5,000 for next year's book, but we still have to pay off the $5,000 from this contract, right?
Right. So what we have is a contract for like the 22-23 year book. And they send us cost estimates. They say, we estimate if you sell, not cost estimate, like income estimates. So if you sell X amount of yearbooks for high school and X amount for middle school and X amount for elementary, you should make about this much money. And then if you go out and sell ad sales, then you should like come out ahead or break more than even. So that's kind of how they operate. If you don't sell that many books, they kind of still lock you into that pricing. So you might lose some on sales and hope you make it up on ads. And if you don't make it up on ads, then you end up with a deficit. So that's what happened in previous years. But they never asked us to settle up at the end of those years. They just kind of let that roll. I'm thinking that eventually it would catch up and, it has caught up with us.
I thought so when we get the email saying that the class dues are due and then if they want to purchase a yearbook and they want yearbooks, I thought the purchase of the yearbook went towards the dollars to create the yearbook.
It does.
Yes.
It does, but just selling yearbooks alone is not enough to pay for the cost of creating the yearbook. That's where the
Well,
ad sales are supposed to kick
so
in and make.
I
up the
guess my
difference.
question going back is, the yearbook I think is like $20 or 15.
No, it's
It's
the middle
It's
school
15.
one, the middle school one and the elementary one are
Okay.
cheaper. You're right there, but the high school one is 15.
So how much does the yearbook actually cost? I mean, if they would say,
Yeah, to cover our costs without ads, what would we have to charge?
With our new agreement, it's $50. It costs, what we charge is what it costs. It is a yearbook in and of itself is a loss, whatever.
The school's not bringing in any money by
Bringing no
producing
money
the
for
yearbook.
everyone that we sell.
Yeah.
So the idea behind the $5,000 is that we will sell the yearbooks, we sell them at cost through the first semester. We charge $60 for second semester if a student buys them during the second semester. The idea behind the $5,000 is our ad sales for our yearbooks goes towards that payment. Whereas in the previous years, we needed the ad sales to help cover the cost. We could not charge enough to recoup the costs of the books.
Do you know what you would have to charge to break
It
even
was 13,000 something last year.
for all the books?
So Mr. Carson had all that
For
paperwork
just
in
high
the past
school.
years. I think we
So
would have had to charge like 75 or
Yeah.
something like that to break even on a yearbook those past years. So
so part of this contract
This
is
is-
moving the cost of the
yes,
yearbooks down
lowering the
Yeah.
cost of the
to
yearbooks
help us get
down
through this.
by
Yes.
approximately $3,500 a year.
So
So to get a little
it's
better
like
deal
change,
there.
Yeah.
And lock that in for 3 years. But it's a conversation, we had our principals meeting as far as, are we spinning our wheels here?
Yeah.
And what's going on at other districts and whatnot. So we're trying to find a way not to take money from the general funds or ask for the money from the general funds for yearbook that's paid for out of activity funds, that's paid for by kids buying them. The trouble is, the more we charge our kids, our families, the fewer we're gonna sell.
Well,
And
that's what,
we're just in that spot. And that's the cost of trying to, okay, you have an annual that I think, I don't know, we can debate the value of that. It's a historical reference for our school, so having that at a cost that, I'm telling you right now, it's a break-even cost
Mhm.
as we sit with our new agreement, that because we were not fully aware of the costs that were being charged, and that we didn't sell as many, and that we didn't get as many ad sales, that
We
we're in
were,
this
we were
spot.
not fully aware of our deficit.
Correct.
That's.
So
that's
that's the
what's
truth, and I will own that. The big picture is this like, Dr. Lewis and I believe this is a good 3-year agreement to get us back to being right with
Gets back to
Walsworth,
Mhm.
as we discussed. What does the status of
Yeah.
a yearbook look like, knowing that costs are only going to go up for a certain amount that families would probably be willing to pay? I mean, we can't charge $100 for a yearbook. No, I mean, a few people will buy it. And it's a historical reference for what happened during that year that a school likes to keep a record
Sure.
of. It's, never mind the cost of, our yearbook and digital design class that, I mean, it's a cost, maybe that'd be a way for me to present it to you as far as the general fund, that it's part of the cost of that class, and kids who are taking that class are getting that benefit for digital publishing and interviewing and taking pictures and just everything.
So this is so this contract is to write what was done in the past that we can't change, but moving forward, we're not, there's absolutely, right now we're at a break even, there's not any type of possibility right now, hopefully, to fall into debt again with this company. Is that correct?
That is the goal.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is the goal.
Okay.
Have you looked at or thought about paying the money that's already owed and looking at other companies, or is this a
Yeah, we talked
opposite?
about that too.
That's been explored, I think, that's been explored. I think this is being presented to the board because I believe and we believe this is the best option. Yeah,
In Walsworth has been the more affordable book. to
Yeah.
purchase. There's some other companies out there that would do it. but
Well, it seems to me like, I mean, they should be able to give you a dollar amount. This is what a yearbook is going to cost, and then you can present that to the families and say, if you want a yearbook, it's gonna cost you $50.
That's what we're doing now.
But
Yeah.
it's
well,
based
the
on
issue is that
Sounds like
there's, they want at least
they're
a
putting off
minimum.
more
Exactly.
than what.
They're not gonna do that for 10 people to tell them I want a yearbook.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It
Yeah.
sounds like
so-
they're printing more of them off than what we're actually ordering.
Well, they send
And
us
then
an
charging us
agreement
for
and we look at the agreement. I don't look at the agreement, it's been coming to the yearbook advisor. And looks at the agreement and says, that looks about right. I think we can sell 110 yearbooks at the high school. That's what we have sold in the past. Sometimes that falls short, but we're committed to 110 yearbooks. Make sense?
Yep. Sandwich two kind of sort of COVID years in there where
Yeah,
ad
those
sales
were-
are down, yearbook,
Yeah.
I
To
mean,
Bruce's point,
Yeah,
we
you're
could
right.
have a pre-sale policy and see what the company would do with that. It is based on projections of what you've sold in the past.
Because we're doing the work here and then giving all the digital stuff to the company to put it in a
Printing it.
book, right?
They're giving us the
Their print
software
costs
to bring it into, and then they print them for us. And the thing to keep in mind is if we don't agree to this 3-year deal, then pretty much the deal is off and we do,
right.
we do have to write a machine for that.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean,
But that it means that we're committed to doing this with them their way for the next 3 years. So the way we're looking at it, this is the best deal for 3 years, and then after that point is when we have to
Board members
really
are gonna have to buy a
do
lot of
some,
ads.
we have to do some soul searching
It is.
then,
I
and
see O'Daniel on
no,
it.
that's all I'm
Oh,
saying.
yeah.
We're gonna be buying a full page
Yeah.
spread right there.
I always
They'll
have,
cut you a deal.
yeah.
You're ready to check it out when
Get you their yearbook.
3 years. 3 years.
There you go.
So it's a not a desirable situation, but I think you're right. I mean, from what I've heard, this is the best way out.
it is,
I don't think we ever want to get to a place where we don't have a yearbook. I think there's too many families that
Yep.
kind of treasure that.
Yep.
And
and it's not 15,000 upfront. It's
Right.
5,000, 5,000, and 5,000.
It was
with the
24.
opportunity. Right, and it's not 24,000, so. But I brought it to you because it is a $15,000 category.
Only 110 a year, they said?
So do we need to take action on this?
Yeah.
All right. So I'll make a motion to enter into contract with Walsworth. Enter into contract with Walsworth Company.
Yeah.
For yearbook purchases,
For yearbook production,
yearbook production as presented
I would say for $15,000 over 3 years.
for $15,000 over 3 years.
I will second that.
Thank you, Cassie.
I'm sorry, I think-
That's
Been
okay.
Jen's
Just a second.
feverishly typing all this up and changing it. Okay. All right, let's vote.
Jason,
Yes.
she's credible.
Yes.
Bruce Shear,
No.
Shannon Wilmot,
Yes.
Matt O'Daniel.
Yes.
Cassie, did I give you? Yeah, well, no, but yes.
Okay,
No,
sorry,
did not,
Cassie
yes,
Fletcher.
I-
Okay.
yes.
All right. Very good. Motion carries. The next item is discuss, consider, and take necessary action to approve the audit and financial statements for the 2021-2022 fiscal year. We have copies there. We kind of went over it and we did go over the committee report. Anybody on the committee have any more comments or questions from other board members?
Take some time to kind of review them at home too, and come in and visit with me if you have any questions about anything that you see in there. Because like Chase said, you can read through it.
Yeah.
And just get to a point where you're like, I don't even know what that's saying. So because the comments in there are required, there's like 8 pages of comments that are required of them that describe the audit and the processes they used and things like that. But the important information is in there, which pertains to numbers. Now, the numbers in there were reflected on the AFR, which you got to look at last month as well. So all of the dollar figures are in there. This includes a little bit more about the leasing corporation and the payments to that and the funds from that. So there's an extra thing in there because they don't include the leasing corporation on the AFR. But all of the other figures are in here, including the audited sub-accounts of the activity fund.
Okay.
And I'm happy to sit down and go over it, and especially with
There's a lot in there. No more questions. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the audit financial statement for 2021-2022 fiscal year as presented.
Thank you, Jason.
I'll second it.
Thanks, Chase. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any more discussion? Seeing none, let's vote.
Sharon Wilmot, Bruce Shear.
Yeah.
Matt O'Daniel,
Yes.
Chase credible.
Yes.
Cassie Fletcher. Yes. Jason.
Yes.
All right, very good. Motion carries. Final item on the agenda tonight is item 10.3, discuss, consider the superintendent evaluation. I brought some printed copies here. Everybody, of course, last month had the opportunity to go in there and complete the evaluation. First of all, this is a much better tool than what we used to use. I think we're 2 cycles into it now, and that's really apparent because it's really nice to see the
I didn't catch the summaries.
last year's scores. Yeah.
Yeah, but they're in your summaries that were emailed out because this is a personnel document. So that's why they're not attached there.
Yeah. So in summary, I mean, I would just hit on a few items here. The overall scores, Dr. Lewis's self-evaluation was a 4.93. The board evaluation was a 5.13. When you average all the different categories, at the end of the evaluation, there is an opportunity for us as a board to identify I would call them focus points next year. I'm looking for this here. And when they talk about board identified areas for growth and superintendent identified areas for growth, there were 3 in each of those categories. And 2 of them that we identified were also 2 that Dr. Lewis identified. So I highlighted those, and obviously that makes sense, you know, if we all recognize that there's room for improvement there. Budget planning and management and professional leadership are those two items. So I think those would be the top two priorities, areas for growth going forward. There were also, you know, I would just comment, I know everybody spent time and read through here, but as long as I've been doing these evaluations, this was the best evaluation I've seen a board do with regard to comments and suggestions and constructive criticism and observations. And as a business owner, this is a huge thing, kids. The value in a evaluation is not necessarily the ratings, but it's the feedback that you get as an employee on how I can grow to become a better at my craft, with my job, as a superintendent or as a teacher, or as a, you know, whatever you're doing. So always look for feedback. And I think this is the best job this board's ever done in providing feedback. And there were some items in there where the board mentioned in feedback a couple of different times, leadership development plan. And then as I was going through the self-evaluation, which was completed prior to the evaluation, that was one of Dr. Lewis's ideas. I have it highlighted here, that she would like to engage in a leadership plan, leadership development plan. Yeah, with the admin team. So there's a lot of consistencies, and I think that points to a really good board superintendent working relationship. We all see what's happening, and we know where we need to refocus. So, Dr. Lewis, if there's anything you'd like to add, or any other board members, I know these are confidential documents, but.
No, I didn't. I thought, like you said, it was very cool. I don't think anybody put anything that was not unwarranted or unjustified or uncalled for. And I think everybody had a nice balance of evidence to support what they were saying, and you know, areas where we're strong and areas where we need to continue to work. So that's what we need to hear, and that's what we do these things.
That's exactly right. Good job, everybody, on that. It's appreciated. Anybody have any comments or thing they want to add before we wrap this one up?
I think making the decision to go through the NASB was a really smart decision.
Yeah,
It's very much easier.
Mhm.
and not even easier, but I think that's why we got such a good review. That's why we got so many comments, and it makes this a lot more valuable. Several years, you can look at the scores across time, and there's value there as well.
And you can
So
try
it's
and
not
draw,
easier,
yeah,
but it's more user friendly.
right.
When you look at it again in 5 years, you really
Yeah.
cut track of everything.
Right.
But I think it's definitely easier to interpret. Maybe that's what I was saying.
Sure it is.
too. It's easier for the board to understand what the questions are asking and to provide something meaningful versus like just put your number down, and if you want to write something down. And then, like I said, like the longitudinal, because now we have last year compared to this year, so we can start doing that. We do that with all of our data for our students.
Right.
Why would we not do it when we're doing it with our superintendent?
Yeah. Leader of the district.
Yeah,
Is this something that you go forward on evaluation with principals and stuff?
I don't know if they have a
Using
principal
something
tool,
like
but
that?
it is interesting, and it's a good concept, because the tool that we have for the principals is about, I mean, it's structured the same way the old superintendent evaluation is.
Yeah,
right.
It's not fantastic, so, I mean, we can definitely, in fact, and I don't wanna add more costs to the district to do that, but we can definitely, because there are principal standards out there, and frameworks that I can pull, and maybe we can create something like this on our own to use. So it
It'd
would
be interesting to
I mean,
see
because
if
the teachers have a great evaluation tool, and then the
Right.
superintendent does. And then we've got a weird paper thing, like putting 1 through 5 with the principals as well. So I think it would be great to transition that as well.
it'd be interesting to see if there's I hate to say it, but sometimes people get stale at their job, like stagnant, they don't improve. It'd be interesting to see if they're able to go back years to see, is there a trend working down,
Yeah.
or are you going up, or are you staying flat?
Right.
8 years is life expectancy of a good board member.
Yeah.
I think that was her also.
Yeah, right, yeah, no kidding, we're on the downhill curve, so. What does this look like? This, make a motion to approve and accept the superintendent evaluation as presented,
Or as,
completed.
yeah, I think so, that's completed, because you guys all have copies of that and access to that.
Thank you, Bruce, the last piece of business.
The last I seconded.
Hey.
So let's vote, please,
Just like that, tap that in there.
no problem.
Alrighty, Jason,
Yes.
Cassie, yes.
I'm gonna abstain, 'cause I don't feel like I was involved.
Fair enough.
in that.
Chase Craddock,
Yes.
Matt O'Daniel,
Yes,
Bruce Shear,
Yes.
Shannon Wilmot.
Yes.
all right, very good, motion carries, and we will adjourn at 9 PM. Thanks, everybody. Guys, you picked the longest one.
Come on.
If you need anything signed, just grab any one of us.
Bruce has to sign it.
Bruce, what he should
Bruce said.
say.
Is this on? Is this on?